Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. My name is Michael Bridgman, and you are here because you are a small business owner looking to make big things happen. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. It is, it is April the 28th today, 2022, and we are going to dive into one of my absolute favorite topics today. So I've got some members of the Inner Circle here with me today as well, so we're going to dive into their questions. But today we're going to cover a topic that I think you're going to get a lot out of because it's going to help you make more money, during your sales process. So I'm going to go over what the key stories are to use, the key narratives to use when you're selling. Because here's one of the things that I noticed, and you've probably experienced this yourself, that when you get into selling, when you're at that moment where you want to offer somebody whatever it is you're talking about, whatever it is that they're interested in, that you're offering, that you've walked them through the process of, you get to that moment of selling, and do you clamp up? I know I do, right? We all experience this moment, I think, a lot of us, where we go, oh my gosh, now I got to ask them for money. Now I got to ask them to swap something from their wallet for what I'm offering. It gets uncomfortable. So one of the things that I've discovered and worked on for a long time, and I'm going to share with you, is a sequence of stories, a sequence of narratives. Because let me ask you, can you tell a story instead of making the offer? Can you tell a story instead of asking for money? You know, Kathy, one of our Inner Circle members, is here today. She tells phenomenal stories. Like, if she can walk somebody through her sales process as a narrative, as a story by story process, I will bet it'll be a lot easier to start asking people for dollars to exchange for what she has to offer than just flat out asking them for the sale, right? And a lot of the time, if we build the narrative properly, my friends, what winds up happening is they want to buy anyway. They want to purchase what it is you're offering. Have you ever had that moment where you're literally in a presentation or you're with a salesperson and you're going, okay, just tell me how to buy this because you've already convinced me? Well, it's highly likely. In fact, I'm almost completely convinced that 100% of the time, it's because they've told you great stories. They've brought you on a narrative by giving examples and testimonies and other things, but in the right sequence to get you salivating and enchanted for what it is that they have to offer. So that's the topic that I want to dive into today. And it marries up beautifully with episode number 1 of the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle, where we covered off the incredible Mr. Perry Belcher's 4 steps, 4 sequenced pieces when you're about to transition into the offer. So if you haven't watched episode number 1, jump back and watch that one as well after you watch today's, because that's really going to color a bit of what we dive into today. So I'm really excited that you're here for the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. And without any further ado, I think we should get rocking and rolling. Inner Circle members, you ready for that? All right, cool. So I want to talk about stories that help you sell. Stories that help you sell. And one of the first things we've got to do when we want to be selling is we need to know one very, very, very important thing. I'm going to jump over to my whiteboard here. So we need to know this one critical piece of the equation. All right. And that is, come on, whiteboard, wake up. Oh, hang on. My stuff's over here. There we go. Okay. And that is, who are we selling to? All right, who are you selling to? My Marketing Wizard Inner Circle members know that I harp on this all the time. Who are you selling to? Who is the profile of the ideal client that you want to work with? Who are they? I think we can both agree that when you know exactly who it is that you're talking to, the stories to tell them become easier, doesn't it? The stories that you should share with them become simpler and becomes more obvious what they'd want to hear because you know exactly who you're selling to. In other words, working with a real estate client of mine the other day, she's telling stories about real estate and about buying property and getting into dream homes, but her ideal client that she wants to work with is somebody who's 60 plus. For the most part, they're not going into their dream home anymore, are they? They're downsizing, they're actually shrinking, they're leveraging dollars out of their bigger piece of property, and they're buying a condo or they're buying a little townhouse, something smaller. And she was telling me the other day that she's like, I just don't see why they're not buying into what I'm offering. And I said, well, you're telling the wrong story. You're leading them down the wrong narrative. And one of the reasons is because she wasn't crystal clear on who she was talking to. And this makes a big difference. So the first stage is understanding, who are we selling to? So this right here is stage number 1, my friends. Who are you selling to? And there's really some easy ways to identify this. In fact, I've got a free download that you can pick up from my website, michaelbridgman.ca, and I'll put that up here on the screen, where you can get 8 key questions to knowing your ideal client. And this is something where you can walk through really simply how to create a paragraph that describes this ideal client, this client avatar, as it were. And understanding this person is going to be one of the magic keys to being able to move forward effectively. So the first thing you got to do is identify who you are selling to. All right? Who you are selling to. So that's your profile, right? That's who it is you're talking to. And then ultimately, when you step into the initial sale process, so if we're looking at the sale process as a straight line from here to there, all right? The idea is that the whole thing is about who we're selling to. Stage number 1 here, my friends, is about telling really simple sales stories, really simple narratives that the client can understand and relate to. So this is spot number 1 right here. All right, of what we're going to do. Oh, there we go. I don't know what that thing's doing. Okay. So this is spot number 1. Telling simple stories. So there are some key ways to identify whether the story is simple enough or not. And the client wants to identify with you. Like, that's what they want to do. They want to identify with you. So write these down, you guys. The first story you want to tell is, here's someone like you that's bought this. Here's someone like you that's bought this. So I'll type that in, okay? Question number 1, someone like you bought this or buys this. So you want to share a story of someone just like them that bought this, okay? I did that just as we got started here. I shared a story about a real estate agent that was in the same position that you're in, that wants to make more sales, but she hadn't figured out her ideal client properly to tell the right stories the right times. Okay, here's someone like you that bought this. And when I say bought this, I don't mean just the purchase, because I think we can all agree that a client has to routinely commit to you. A prospect has to routinely commit to the next step. So someone like you buys this also means someone like you, picked up this free offer. Someone like you was also sitting in this webinar. Someone like you was also watching this YouTube channel. Someone like you made this step. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The next question is, then this is always a good one to build some really good rapport. Someone, if I can type properly, there we go. What am I doing here? There we go. Okay, someone you like buys this. We see this one all the time. So these are the building trust questions at the beginning of any offer step, okay? Someone like you buys this, and someone you like buys this. Celebrity endorsement much? All right. This is the narrative that we start to look at as consumers, as purchases, as we go, is there anyone that I really like, that I respect, who's bought this? We see this all the time, don't we? This is influencer marketing, but it's even more subtle than that, right? This is referral stuff. So if you can tell referral stories, if Kathy, if you're busy working with a coaching prospect and you're like, hey, by the way, your friend XYZ, and they can say, yeah, I know my friend. They say, well, they're also part of my coaching program. Like they bought this and they absolutely loved it. What does that do to the prospect to move forward? It's a huge trust build, right? So they they buy into the idea that someone who they know, they like, they trust, they respect has already bought what it is you're offering. And this is a huge transition moment. So as you're building, because over here, my friends, over here, we want them, okay? We want this end for them to buy. They buy it. Your client buys. This is where we want them to get to. But in order for them to get there, we've got to go through these steps of building trust and putting them back into this straight arrow towards where we want to go. All right. And these are simple stories, simple tales that the client can relate to off the top. So someone like you buys this, someone you like buys this. The other thing that we can add here on the front end, because these are the trust building and the teaser ones, are this is an old customer came back for more. This is another really good trust building one. You know, have you ever been in one of those sales conversations with a car salesman and they say, oh, you know what? I've had some of the same clients for 20 years, right? They just keep coming back and buying more cars from me. I've been working with that family for a long time. And what you can do is you can relate these things together. So I was at a car dealership actually about 2 years ago now, and it was done two things. One, they told stories about people like me that bought the Audi that I own. Then they said another car or another salesperson was like, hey, this person recommends me. And then they knew a friend of mine who'd come back and bought 2 cars from them already. So there was 3 stories that all related specifically to this to help me build trust to move forward. So by show of thumbs up, my inner circle people, does this make sense? Okay. Because the sale process is one about trust. The sale process is about guiding someone from unknowing all the way to where they do know. And so an old customer coming back, and the other story that you can tell here too is the, look at my notes here. Oh, is that there's the old customer came back and product still works for old customer, right? So this is about building respect for the product. You know, they bought this. So a friend of mine, Jake, he runs a company called Paddock Blade. And one of the things that the Paddock Blade is so wonderful at, because it cleans up horse manure from a paddock, right? It's this cool sled that you drive around with an ATV or you pull it with a truck or whatever, and you can clean up your paddock really quickly, because cleaning up horse poop by hand is a really long and arduous process. So I'm told. Anyway, so him and I were talking about some of his marketing, and one of his big claims is that he's got clients that bought it 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when his dad first started selling them a decade ago, and the product is still works. It's still great. They still love the product. That's a huge selling feature, right? You buy this once, for the next 10 years, it's going to be fantastic. So those are all really good trust building stories. So this whole section right here is all about trust, right? This initial section here is all about trust. Are they going to trust you enough to move forward? Are they going to trust you enough to move forward? And the only way to build that trust, my friends, is through narrative. It's through story. You can tell them all the details about your product that you want. Kathy, you can go through every single element of your coaching program at this stage, and they don't care because they just don't trust you yet, right? And that's fair. That's the stage that they're at, okay? So that's this stage right here is trust. So then what you want to do, though, is you want to move into the next element of trust, which is they've made the decision that they like it. So they've made a choice. So they say, okay, I'm interested. I like this. Their brain is going to immediately go into one very important step, you guys. And this is so crucial because we skip over this step all the time. They now need to convince, their logic brain needs to convince their monkey brain, their id brain, that their purchase makes sense. They emotionally now want the product. You've done a wonderful job right here, my friends, of creating the demand in your trust section that they emotionally want the product. All right. The next stage, okay, And one sec here. So now that they emotionally want the product, you've got to jump into turning their logic brain into the part of their brain that buys into what you're offering as well. So they emotionally want it, but now they've got to convince themselves that their choice is right. You know, speaking of me buying the Audi, it was a frivolous purchase. Okay, like let's be transparent and honest. I don't need that car. Like this, I drive about 12 kilometers to my office here, maybe not even that much, right? And how often do you really open up, you know, a 350 horsepower car? Like how often do you open that thing up? Our highway is a gridlock. For those who know the Vancouver area in British Columbia, Canada, highway number 1 from where I live in Abbotsford to Vancouver is a parking lot for probably 22 hours of the day. Like it's not a place where you open up this car. So I have to drive probably an hour out of the city before I can open the car up. So this is a frivolous purchase. Emotionally, I want it. Emotionally, I can see myself driving the car. I like the way it feels. I got to think for German cars, just the way they move and the way they handle and the way they make the driver feel. So I'm emotionally convinced to buy the car. So now what has to happen is the salesperson has to help me make a logical choice. He's got to help me define the logic. And so they'll do all sorts of crafty things where they'll say, oh, you know what are your current car payments? Because I'll bet we can get the car at the same price point, right? We can get it in, we can wedge it in there. We'll put it over 64 months or we'll put it over, you guys have all experienced this, 76 months, whatever it is, right? We'll put it over 90 months, however long it's going to take you, right? The next 18 years you're buying this car. We'll put it over that length of time so we get your payments down to the same. Okay, now this is costing me no more money per month than my previous one. Check. Right? Now, those who are in the finance world are going, oh, Michael, that's a foolish thing to do. But you guys know what I'm talking about. It's an analogy here, right? So, you know, I go, okay, that makes sense to me, right? I do a check on that. And then the thing's like, well, and this is this car is 6 years newer than the one you're driving right now. This is a 2019. You're driving a 2013. There is going to be some maintenance on that 2030. Like you guys know this conversation, right? How many thousands of dollars is that car going to cost you in the next couple of years? This one's all on warranty, man. Like everything. We'll fix everything. All you got is a car payment, right? So all these, okay, right. So I can, it's actually maybe going to cost me less money in the next couple of years. So check mark that box. Better on, so we go through the process of all of these logic checks. And this becomes where the salesperson has to understand their client. So once again, going to the profile of who it is you're talking to and what their needs are, okay, and listening. But also it's going to go to the fact that now you got to lean into not just you, the salesperson, convincing them of what's happening and what they should buy to help their logic brain, but also looking at proof, looking at trends, looking at some of the social proof that's necessary for them to buy the vehicle. So let's jump into some stories that can help you illustrate that social proof, okay? Because that becomes a really critical element to how you help somebody make a logic choice. So they trust you, they've made the emotional choice. Now they have to make the logic choice, okay? And in the logic section, we as small business owners now, when we're selling from logic, we've got to dive into our toolkit and start to look at some of the trends, some of the ways we can lean into science to help us. So the first thing you want to look at are, where are their trend stories? Okay. So Kathy, in your particular case, in the coaching industry, you can look at the fact that the trends are skyrocketing for people buying personal coaching, right? Like the trend is massive, and you can find some statistics on that if you did some digging and some research to go, and just so you know, so they've emotionally trust you now, everybody. Let's think about the client on their journey. They're going, okay, I like this, I want to buy this, but their logic brain kicks in, that front lobe kicks in. And so then you can help them by going, well, you know what? The fact is, and I'm just making these stats up, okay? I'm making these stats up right now. The fact is, about 50% of all high-end professionals, all 100,000+ earners, are now getting private coaching. And they will be doing that over the course of the next 5 years. Like, this is what's happening now. Forbes put this out, or Entrepreneur Magazine put this out, or as I said, I'm making this up right now, but wherever put this out. And this is the trend. So someone goes, oh man, if I'm not on trend, like if other people are doing this, you know, and you can say, are you going to be able to stay ahead of your competition, stay ahead of other people in the marketplace if you're not getting the coaching, because they are getting the coaching and they're going to be able to move faster. So you can use trends to help them sort of get over the hump of rationalizing their choice. So trend stories are great. So the other thing you can do here is, come on, there we go. Do you want to be an early adopter? If you know your ideal client well enough that they are the type of person that wants to be ahead of curve on things, then you can use the early adopter style stories, right? And these are very much about going, hey, can you imagine what life is going to be like when you've got this and you are 6, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months ahead of everybody else because you have it, right? Think of what that's going to be. And you can say, this is going to be big in the industry. This is going to be huge, but you're here now. You know, Kathy, your VR training stuff, right? Like the idea of going, this is going to be something that workplaces have all over the map. You can get it now, right? And be an early adopter, and people are going to flock to your company because you've got training and you are on the cutting edge of how things operate in your industry or whatever you happen to be in. So this is one of those really, really awesome little stories you could tell. They're what we call kind of a Hell Island versus Heaven Island story. You are here right now. Your early adopter, you know, mentality is going to get you here, is going to get you to Heaven Island faster, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing, of course, with with any type of product or any type of sort of innovative service is that you can go and you can show them your tests and your trials. Because everybody has questions, don't they, you guys, about how this is not going to work, right? The human brain is going to jump in and it's going to say, oh, but this doesn't work for me because ... Or what if, you know, no, let's say it's the Audi again that I'm talking about. And I'm like, yeah, but Audi parts are more expensive. And the salesman knows that could be one of my protests, right? One of my logical things of not to buy. So then he can be like, and you know what we found is that there's really only a fractional difference between buying parts for Audi versus buying parts for, you know, XYZ company, or you can get these parts at the same price point as you can for your Volkswagen or for, you know, and it's less than a Mercedes. Like there's ways they can rationalize that choice. But this is all about now using trials or using, we've tested the product here, we've done it with this. These are all narratives that help that brain turn into a yes moment. So these are those prototype questions. These are those, we've done the trials, we've done the tribulations, or we've done the research for you. And this is what we've discovered type questions. All right, hope you guys get value out of this. Like when you start to logic these questions together and you start to assemble them into a recipe, it's so powerful, my friends. Okay, and the last logic one is testimonials. This is the last big proof one right here, is testimonials. In other words, somebody just like you, right? They bought this, and here's their actual testimonial telling you about their experience with the product. Here's exactly their testimonial. And you can use that information, or they can use that information now to go, okay, you know, Mark is just like me, and this is his take on it. He says it worked really powerfully for him. I'm going to move forward. You know, this is when you want to buy something and the client starts to look at reviews of product online. You've all done this. I know you have. What are you searching for? You're searching for testimonial stories that help you logic your decision, aren't you? You want to buy something and you're going, should I show you? Somebody else bought this? What's their take on it? Well, here's the thing. This is what someone else experienced when they bought it. And that's what we're looking for. That's why we love reviews. They're social proof of what happened. All right. So real quick, this is the trust section. This is the logic section. We've got one more small little story to touch on. But before I jump into that, any questions from my inner circle people who are on this call with me about the 2 stages right here so far? No, making sense? All right, cool. Okay. Last piece. And this is the one that kind of puts people over the top. So is right in here, what I love to do in the sale moment is use a very specific story structure that I call the rags to riches story. Well, I don't call it this. That's what it's normally named, is the rags to riches story. Or as I put it just a moment ago, they're essentially on Hell Island, and you want to go Hell Island to Heaven Island. You want them to get there. So I learned the Hell Island to Heaven Island thing from Peng Joon, who's another phenomenal marketer. But the idea here is that they are somewhere. They're in a rags moment. They're somewhere where they don't want to be. And it doesn't have to be that horrifying, my friends. Like, it doesn't have to be that terrible. What you sell may not be something that, not everybody sells life-altering stuff. Like, you know, going back to me buying the Audi, it didn't alter my life. It's just a car, right? Like, it's not, I was driving a very nice car before. There was nothing wrong with it. I wasn't on Hell Island. But the fact is that I was in a place before, and I could see myself being in somewhere that I loved even more afterwards. So that's what this is really all about. I'm in one place, but I can see myself being happier somewhere else. And there's a very specific structure from the rags to riches story. And you may be asking yourself, okay, why here? Because in the end, people they make buying decisions based on emotion still. So after they've gone through the logic process, my friends, of going, okay, I want to buy this. Now I got to prove to my brain that I should buy it. You got to bring them back into emotion. As a salesperson, you have to guide them back into their emotions by going, here's where you are. Wouldn't you love to be here instead? You're down here, but you can be up here. Right? You're in Denver right now. You're in Colorado, right? Wherever you are. No, Kathy, you're in Idaho?
Utah.
Utah. Crap. I'll get it. Okay, so you're in Utah. You could be in Hawaii. Right? So you can you're busy. So if you're a travel agent and you're talking to Kathy and you're like, hey, Kathy, you can be in Utah, or you can be in Utah for the last month of May, or you can have this phenomenal 10-day experience in Greece. Where would you like to be? Right? Like, you can paint that picture. Sorry, what were you going to say, Kathy?
I want to be in Greece.
Mm-hmm. Right? So as a travel agent, that's what you do. Like, somebody is one place, you want them to be somewhere else. We see it in their imagery all the time. So, but a rags to riches story, a you are here and you could be here story, has some very specific structure. And it can be simple. It can be in just a couple of sentences, or it can be a detailed story. But ultimately, I'm going to give you that structure so that you tell the story properly. Does that make sense? Okay. So the first piece is the bad place, I like to call it. So the bad place that they're in, the struggle that they're facing, the challenge that they're buried in, whatever it is, the bad place. All right. They are, and you want to touch on some specific notes. So you want to touch on, kind of where they are physically. So we just talked about being in Utah, right? You want to talk about where they are physically, but you also want to talk about where they are possibly emotionally, socially, mentally, that type of thing, right? But there's something inside them that they want more. So we've got to trigger that. You've got to trigger that idea that they're where they are right now, but there's something else. There's another place they could go. They have an idea, a dream, a place where they'd love to be. And they are ultimately think of it like a little bit like Cinderella. Okay, so think of the Cinderella story. She's got more going on. Like she wants more. She's in this terrible spot, being mistreated, but also just being put in a place where they don't respect her, right? Like they don't even respect what she's capable of, and she knows there's more to be had. So that's where they are. And then ultimately, so you want to help them find that image in that place. And then what you want to do is in the middle part here, right? Oh, no, middle. What am I doing? You want to trigger their strength, as I like to put it. Okay. You want to trigger that boldness. You want to trigger that courage in their strength. So let's use Kathy being in Utah and going to Hawaii as an example. Okay. Because people are probably like, what do you mean by trigger their strength? So she's in Utah, you know, I mean, it's cold. It's not exactly paradise. I mean, it's gorgeous in the summertime, but it's not exactly paradise, you know, in the middle of April or May. It's you kind of want to get out and you want to go to Hawaii. You want to go to Mexico. You want to, you know, spend some time in the Riviera. So they're like, yeah, that would be amazing. But, you know, I've got these challenges. So you want to trigger their inner strength. So ultimately, then you want to go, and you can do this. This is how easy it is. I've got you. All you've got to do is commit to this. And I know that you can do that, right? All it's going to cost is this much money. And ultimately, that's something that you can easily find, right? This is one of those trips that are going to be incredible. Think of what it's going to be like on the other side. And so you start triggering those inner strength moments of the person going, yeah, you know what? I do want this. This is something I can afford. This is something I can do. It just takes, you know, maybe one less Starbucks for 30 days, like whatever it's going to be to get to that spot. And so you trigger that strength. If it's something like they want to buy a car, like once again, we're using car as an analogy, right? You can go to the similar thing. You can go, you know what? Think about how great you're going to feel when you pull up in this Audi versus what you were driving before. You know, you're in the coaching and the consulting industry. People are going to respect you more. They're going to like you tap into those inner strengths that the person wants to attribute or wants to aspire to, and that they already have percolating, and you start to bring them to the surface, right? And you help them take charge, right? Cinderella, for example, she's shown you've got this wonderful personality. You've got these great things about you. You're a hard worker. You deserve this stuff. It's your time. And so you trigger that inner strength element so that you're ultimately helping them make the decision to move forward based on the things that they find powerful about themselves. All right. And then at the end, down here at the bottom, you got to tap into the deserved recognition or accomplishment. Or, accomplishment, sorry, destination is the word I'm looking for. Cinderella gets the prince because she deserves it, right? You get that wonderful trip, that you go to that wonderful destination because you deserve it. So you've earned it by being this person. You've earned it because of the strengths that we're talking about. And you can walk your client through that narrative. Right? Debbie, she's here on the inner circle. She's in the antique business. This is one of those things, Debbie, when someone's going, I don't know if I should buy this gorgeous, you know, dining room table that you've got here, or this beautiful piece of furniture, or this gorgeous lamp. And you can say, well, you know, I mean, you're home. If you're not happy with the way it looks right now, if you're not really happy with this, can you imagine how gorgeous this table is going to be? You know, you can get rid of that old one that you don't like. You know, it doesn't have to be there. And you can have this phenomenal space. I know you probably decorate beautifully, triggering inner strength, right? I know you love the look of a home when it feels, you know, lived in, but classy, and it feels like home. I know that's how you want something to feel, and you deserve this. Like, you deserve to have this gorgeous spot, right, in your home that makes you, that helps you buy into the history of what's going on in the community and in the space. Like this is going to look phenomenal in your house. And just think of that, right? So riffing off my feet, you guys, it's not the perfect story, but ultimately you're walking them through that rags to riches narrative. Okay. And then that leads to the sale. Then this leads directly over to this buy moment right here. Okay. This big buy moment where they're like, yes, I'm ready to make the purchase. And these are these 3 stages of the actual sales process, but the narratives that you should be touching on at each stage. Now, by a show of thumbs up for my inner circle people, can you see how powerful walking people through this narrative can be to help your sales process? Awesome. So I hope those who are watching on YouTube here can see this. Like, this is a really, really empowering process and recipe to start to understand, because now you can build out your sales process, my friends, based on the stories you want to tell. So just as a quick recap, okay? Just as a quick recap, identify who you're selling to, because that's going to be indicative of the stories, all right? And then build the trust stories. Build the logic story so their brain says, okay, this makes sense. This is a good decision, right? Emotion, you've got this. And then take them back to emotion where you say, you're in this place right now, but you can be here and you deserve to be here, right? You've earned it. So help them make the purchase. Now, I'm going to put a caveat on this. Use this for good, my friends. Okay. Use this to sell great product. Use it to offer people your amazing services and be fantastic at what you do. Don't be a shyster. Okay. Like, do this, like, put phenomenal product out there, do a phenomenal job with your services, and sell to people who actually need what it is that you're offering and really do want it, because it can be manipulative, right? It can be enchanting. This is the marketing wizard's inner circle. You are wizards, okay? You can be enchanting. You could be casting a spell on your prospect here, but make sure that's exactly where they want to go. Cinderella had a spell cast on her by her fairy godmother, but it's where she wanted to go. She wanted this, right? So the fact of the matter is that with this process, and I'll just jump over to the screen one more time so you can grab any notes if you're watching on YouTube. Pause this so you can write this down, okay? This quick little 3 or 4 story narrative, and you don't have to use all these stories, okay? Another caveat, don't use them all. Don't use a story, like there's a number of stories here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9 different stories here. Don't use all 9. Just use what makes sense at the moment, or use what you like best, or use which stories you have that are your best, if that makes sense. Okay. So I hope you got great value out of that. Let's jump over to questions. Do my inner circle people have any questions? You can please just unmute yourselves, and any questions about that process and any discoveries that you had while we were walking through it.
I don't have questions on the actual process that you just went over.
Okay.
I really quite enjoyed it. Have lots of notes, and
good.
But whenever you have questions, whenever we can talk about BAMMO, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, we'll jump into that. Yeah. And Kathy, what did you, just a quick note, what did you discover? Like what popped out? Did you have a eureka moment while I was going through that stuff?
Yeah, you said I was a great storyteller, and I never really thought that I was. So I put that in my notes. I was like, Michael said I am a great storyteller, and that means a lot to me coming from you.
Oh, well, there you go. You are a great storyteller. You're a fabulous storyteller.
Thank you. But as far as the process itself goes, I liked how in-depth but simple it is. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. because stories can be in depth, right? And one of the things that I love about this, and I hope for the listeners at home this makes sense, you can remember stories. For me, it's harder to remember a sales script, right? But isn't it easy to remember narrative? Like, it's easy to remember the story because you don't have to get it word for word. You just have to tell the right story at the right time. So that was one of the reasons that I love using this for my sales process.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to dive into a moment here where we're going to touch on our BAMMO software. So for those who are watching at home, you can certainly feel free to keep watching. We're going to dive into the BAMMO software because one of my Inner Circle members has a question regarding that. So I'm just going to open up my screen here, Kathy, and then we can jump in there. So while I'm sharing my screen, why don't you ask me your question? Okay.
So my question is, in the email that I sent to you, I wanted to figure out how to embed that code.
Okay, onto your website.
Yeah.
Okay. So just for those who are watching at home, this is our BAMMO software. So this is software that my company offers to small business owners to help them, get great traction on their marketing and automate things and get a lot of and get everything all done in one place. So right now we're going to look at the sites section. All right. So is there a specific form here? So these are all the funnels that you've built over there. Okay. So let's pop into the forms. So which form is it that you'd like to have embedded on your website, Kathy?
So if you go to my website, if you go to vrwaffles.com.
Sure.
And right now it's got, hang on a second. I think something's all cattywampus. So hang on a sec. Oh, down at the bottom, it says be the first, full name and email address.
Okay. Loading it up right now.
That's interesting. It's taking so long. So scroll down to the bottom.
Oh, I love the hands. Those are awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so right down here, this.
Right. So I'm having a lot more people because I'm getting my name out there. They're filling out this information, and I want to be able to just automatically have it feed into BAMMO.
Okay.
So I don't know that I've created a form. So.
Okay. Well, so the form you've got right here, okay? So you can build a form inside BAMMO. Let's move our image over
maybe
here.
I do. Well, first.
So this first name and email, right? Ultimately, any of these, if you open up this and you come down to integrate form, all right, you get an embed code.
Okay.
And so if you copy that code and you go into your software builder, your website builder.
Yeah.
All right. You can put an HTML window in here and you can embed a code. And the form that you build in BAMMO will now then appear on your website.
Okay.
Just that easy.
Well, that sounds super easy.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So you can play around with the structure of this, with the styles and all that kind of thing, like mess around with the background colors if you want to, like all sorts of stuff like that. But ultimately, you can grab the code from integrate form and embed it onto this page of your website. Mm. And then as soon as somebody fills it out, they'll pop into your contacts list inside BAMMO.
Okay, that was easy.
Yeah. So let's do this. There we go. All right. So thank you so much for watching, my friends. And I'm so excited that you were here with me today during the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. If you'd love to find out more about what my company does, how to get your hands on BAMMO or get a demo of the product, please pop over to michaelbridgman.ca. You can check us out there. And thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. Thanks for being fabulous, my Inner Circle members. I love you very much. And until next time, my friends, have fun, be more, and love lots. Ciao for now.